So now we have our second presentation by Stephen McConnachie from the BFI National Archive. So Stephen is head of data and digital preservation. And in his presentation, he will approach the challenges of cataloging and documenting large corpuses through the example of the ad collection that the BFI acquired through off-air recording over a 10-year period. So let me put...
Okay. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Stephen McConnachie. This is the presentation. I'll just introduce myself a little bit. And from Vote Leave to Rave Dad, unlocking a decade of TV adverts in the BFI National Archive. I'm head of data and digital preservation. My teams manage the kind of what it says on the tin. We manage the data about the collection, physical and digital, systems, practices, standards. We manage the digital preservation, systems, practices, standards. We also manage cybersecurity, same words. And finally, I manage a small but very mighty team of developers who join all that up with the magical glue of Python. So that's me. And I'm going to talk to you about a specific project, but just to give you a sense of who we are, we're the UK's National Archive for Film and Television and the other moving image in all its glorious mess. So we have as much, if not a lot more television in our collection than film, but we have to, it's complicated. We have to manage film, which is huge data in smaller volume, and television, which is small data in astronomical volume. So it's a very complicated environment, and this is just a specific snapshot of one of those. So, on my last slide, I've got a place you can go to read more with some reference links and a GitHub repository if that's your thing. And I'll also put a recording of the slides. So if you want to take pictures, you can do, but I'll also share it online afterwards. Okay. So, adverts in our archive, I thought I'd just describe briefly when we got them and how we got them. So 1985, the first off-air capture, manual recording to videotape. The person responsible for that is in the room, Charles Farrell. Most of you probably know Charles Farrell, but can take responsibility for that start. 1990, this was formalised in UK legislation in the Broadcasting Act. This formalised the National TV Archive and gave us a funding structure and a mandate that is still there. 2011, we switched to file-based archiving, like I guess many, if not all, television archives did. And that was still manual. People in teams working to record, literally recording and preserving. 2015, we switched to automation. We forked the BBC's Redux system, which some of you may be aware of, and we started capturing 18 channels of UK television. Redux had a shelf life, and then we switched in 2023 to our own in-house system, which is called Stora and is open sourced, and you can find that on GitHub and take it if you want it. 2024, we purchased 10 years of adverts metadata. There's lots of metadata providers in the advertising ecosystem. Typically, the use case for that metadata is analytics, regulation, governance, etc. It's not designed for archival use, but we found that, my God, it's incredibly useful for archival purposes. 2025, we had a government grant. Oh, sorry, the first thing to say about the metadata is we discovered through purchasing that metadata, we have 18 million rows of adverts represented in that collection. That's a big, important number. Hang on to it, and I'll come back to it in a little while. 18 million of anything is frightening. So we were a little scared of it. We didn't quite know what to do with it. And then we were lucky enough to get a government grant from the UK Department of Science, Innovation and Technology to buy an H100, what is that, I hear you ask? An H100 was the best AI chip you could buy, to the point that the US government prevented that chip from being sold to China, and still try to prevent it being sold to China. So we got one. It's very, very expensive, and it made us think, oh, maybe this is the solution to 18 million adverts. So I'm going to talk about this automation era in this presentation, but what we've learned through this project, I'm hoping in the end to apply backwards to the pre-automation adverts collection. So adverts in the archive, why? I did a whole bunch of research over the last year about adverts, because this is a major adverts collection. I collated all of that research into a document, and I'm going to share that in my sharing slide at the end for anyone who's interested in why adverts. But there's lots of amazing research for the last 50 years about why advertising is impactful. Ideology, media funding, identity construction, political force, globalizing force, etc. As I said, I'll share the links on the last slide if that's interesting to you. But I thought I would illustrate that with some video. So I tried to find a video of an advert from the start of our 10 years and an advert from the end of our 10 years. So I'm going to play them. I might have to adjust the audio, but let's see. So this comes with a trigger warning for British viewers, and maybe for European viewers too. It's very triggering for me. I'm going to play it anyway.
Every week, the United Kingdom sends £350 million of taxpayers' money to the EU.
Good, huh?
That's the cost of a fully staffed, brand new hospital.
One new hospital a week.
Or looked
to
at
the
another
EU.
way, that's £20 billion per year.
That's enough of that. So really the story is adverts are not just for selling you toothpaste. Adverts are for selling you ideas. And there's lots of research and evidence about what happened in the UK in 2016. And this is the 10th anniversary month of Brexit, so it's especially traumatic to some British people, not all British people, I should say, but to me in particular. The media distribution of ideas, some of which were accurately presented and some of which were incredibly fraudulent, £350 million, one NHS hospital per week. This advert was part of a mission to convert British voters to leave the EU. So adverts on TV are really important. That's my pitch. So I'm going to go forward to the end of the timeline, and this was a Christmas advert last Christmas, and this comes with a trigger warning for rave dads like me who have teenage kids. It's very different, but hopefully it tells a different kind of value story. Oh, hold on. Let me see. Codec unsupported. Who said digital was easy, right? Well, you know, I have the codec on my laptop, so obviously it played there, but the codec's missing on this laptop, so let me describe the advert to you anyway. So this was a very high-impact advert at Christmas by a British shop called John Lewis, which, if you've ever been to the UK and you talk to British people about John Lewis, it holds a kind of deep position of kind of love and trust in the British psyche. And every year they have a big, expensive, glamorous, well-filmed, well-scripted television advert. Every year it gets loads of media. It's like a short film. Now, last year, those of you who watch Netflix might have seen a thing called Adolescence. It's a show about a kind of crisis in British teenage masculinity, in particular Britain, but maybe globally. Anyway, John Lewis made an advert tapping into that zeitgeist by showing a dad getting a gift from his teenage son, and it was a record from the dad's youth, right from my youth, 1991, the year I went to university. And he plays the record, and it takes him back in time, and gets closer to his teenage son through this gift. It's a very brilliant advert. You'll have to take my word for it. Anyway, so my pitch is adverts can sell you ideas that can be like world-changing ideas for the British economy and political fabric and sense of self. They can also sell you things. It was trying to sell you John Lewis, but it was really selling you an idea about masculinity, how fathers and teenage sons should behave. So that's my pitch. Adverts are very important. They tell us about ourselves. Whether they want to or not, that's what they do. So you can Google that. It's on YouTube. So remember with the 18 million adverts, it's a scary number. So we looked at the metadata, and I started digging around in it, and I realized that there is this thing here. You probably can't see it. It's a unique identifier for every advert as a work. Now this was a massive moment of joy for me, because what you can do with that, oh, by the way, all my presentations have to have at least CSV data, ideally XML, JSON, CSV, but because Kate had JSON in hers, I'm just going to use CSV and XML, so I'm off of it. So this unique identifier was incredibly important, because when you sort on it, you get all of the repeat broadcasts of the advert across a day. So in this case, there's something like 23 repeats of a single advert across a single day. So that means we don't have 18 million adverts in the collection, and the ID enables us to deduplicate the 18 million. So actually, what we have is 137,000 unique adverts in the collection, which is quite amazing, because what that tells us is less than 1% of adverts on our 18 channels are unique. 99% are repeats. So that gives us 13,000 odd unique adverts a year, 1,000 odd a month, 263.5 a week, etc., etc. 1.5 unique adverts per hour. So already it turned a huge, overwhelming 18 million project into a 137,000 project, really. So I'm going to talk a little bit about documentation using this metadata and the other things it lets us do. Again, you probably can't see it clearly, but there's 3 product categories. There's major, mid, and minor. Now this was also a moment of high joy for a metadata geek like me, because what it lets you create is a taxonomy for your 137,000 unique adverts of what the content classification is. And I really loved seeing this, because already it starts to tell you stories about Britain and what they sell to us and what we buy. And I won't go into it, but there's the writer J.G. Ballard had the concept of found literature, instruction manuals, etc. For me, the adverts taxonomy is found literature about how it is to be British and the stuff we get sold. So this was a very exciting moment for me to realize not only do we get a means of identifying all the adverts, we get a means of classifying them into taxonomies, and that's powerful. I won't go into detail on this, but just to say, I learned about household FMCG. It means household fast-moving consumer goods. It's an amazingly rich metadata source and the things I've learned about adverts. So I want to talk about the digital preservation and access challenge, now that we have a way to document these in our collections database. So this column here is the start time of each advert on each channel on each day for the 137,000. Unfortunately, this metadata provision is varying by up to 2 minutes, plus or minus. So what does that mean? It means, how do you extract only the advert from the surrounding program for 137,000 things? You could never do that manually. Well, we could never do that manually. So how do you do that? Because what you want to do, what I want to do, is make that collection presentable to an audience as an adverts collection, not presentable to an audience, you go and find it, it's in here somewhere. And it's also very difficult to do it that way, because then you have the rights issues surrounding in the programs, etc. So the aim is to extract the adverts as discrete, precise objects to present them to users, researchers, and other users. So the solution. We were lucky to get the grant, and we bought this H100. And the solution I've been working on, which I'm going to describe, is using that H100, which is running in the archive network. That means we don't have to send data to Google servers or OpenAI servers or Anthropic servers or anyone else's servers at all, because we have it in our network. And Hugging Face, which is our repository for open licensed AI models. You can download them, you can use them to do anything you want to do with them. So that's what we've been doing. So I watched a lot of adverts during this. In fact, I became a bit obsessed, and I would make my family watch adverts with me and keep the sound up, and they would, go and make a cup of tea and get some cheese, and I'd be watching the adverts. And I came to a realization that I'd never thought of before, and I can't believe I'd never thought of it before, which is the last frames of every single advert, with tiny, tiny exceptions on television, have a very clear statement of the brand. Like very graphic, very obvious, and therefore very usable. There's a very tiny percentage that don't have this. So I suddenly thought, this is a very easy method for the AI to understand where the advert ends, and therefore where the next advert begins. So the other thing I learned through looking at the metadata that I'd never known through my entire life of watching television is each of these is an ad break. So between a program in the middle, between two programs or in the middle of a program. Anyone notice anything striking about the start times in each of those ad breaks? Every advert on British television is a multiple of 10 seconds to the frame. It's absolutely rigid. It's baked into the mechanisms for creating and legislating adverts. I never knew that. I've been watching adverts for 50 years. So I formed a hypothesis. Can we identify the adverts using a vision language model from Hugging Face? Can we pass it the descriptive metadata that we've purchased for brand, advertiser categories? Can we identify the last frame in every advert by the logo, the text, or both things? Can we use the duration? Remember, everything is a multiple of 10 seconds. Thereby, can we identify all ads in the ad break to frame accuracy? So that was my hypothesis. And I built a pipeline. So again, you probably can't read this, but what the pipeline does is it takes every program file, so it's an hour or half an hour or 40 minutes. It uses that to look up the metadata from CSV files, and it uses FFmpeg, of course, to split the program file into a likely chunk that contains the ad break. And what I've, through testing, arrived at is 60 seconds before the first ad and 6 minutes from that point on. So a 6 or 7 minute chunk is what I pass into the next part of the pipeline. Because remember, the metadata can be wrong 2 minutes forward or 2 minutes backward or 2 minutes forward. So that 6 or 7 minute chunk gets fed to the next stage, which is the AI watches at 1 frame per second, and it watches it 5 times, and it comes to a conclusion, and then it passes the median of those 5 decisions. Because don't forget, AI is non-deterministic. It's not the same every time you use it, yet. So we run it 5 times, we take the median, and that becomes our result. What do we mean by watches? What does an AI do when it watches video? So you pass 1 frame per second. The AI models usually split that themselves. You also then pass it a prompt. And this is the prompt. Just briefly talk you through it. We tell the AI what's likely to be in this, the end of the Lorraine program on ITV1, the ad break, and then the start of Lorraine program on ITV1. We pass it the sequence of ads it's likely to have in there. And you can't see it, but this is one of my favorite things about this metadata is every ad break tells you a little short story about British consumerism. It's fascinating. Here we've got Maltesers, Heinz baked beans, Butlins holiday camp. Then we have Skechers, sports shoes. We have pain relief medication. And then we have Age UK charity. It's like my life flashing before my eyes. So we give it a task. Your task is to find every advert in this list using the logos, text, or other visual statement in the last frames. We give it a bunch of instructions, be careful, this stuff's important. And then finally, we ask it for specific XML output. And this is a typical response. I have to say, this worked much better than I was expecting it to work. And I'm using one of the small Chinese models, a Quen model, 4 billion parameters. It's very small. You can even run it on a MacBook if you have a big fancy MacBook with GPU chips in it. It was amazing to me, the quality of these results. But the key thing is they're very, very variable. That's why we have to run 5 passes. Pass 1 could be terrible, pass 2 to 3 excellent, pass 4 terrible, and pass 5 excellent. So taking the median of the 5 as your marker to pass into the next stage in the pipeline, which is this one. We take the result from the 5 passes, 6 minutes, and we take a very, very small chunk and we pass it at 25 frames per second. Because what the result has is variation. It's missing fine grain. It's moving a second or half a second out. So I'm also running late. So what we do is we take a very tiny chunk and we pass it at 25 frames per second. And we give it a slightly different prompt. The prompt is, this advert is Disneyland Paris. Your job is to find the exact last frame from these 3 seconds at 25 frames per second and give me more different XML. And this is the XML we ask the model for. I have to say, asking the model to give you a confidence value is useless. Don't try it, it's always high. It's always confident it's done a good job. Never tells you, I've done a really bad job here. It's always high, whether it's rubbish or not. So that was a waste of time, but I learned that. The next thing it does is it uses that precise answer to extract the individual adverts from the clips. And what we end up with is a whole bunch of files with unique identifier, category, and brand in the file name. And that is the success story we were looking for. Grabbing the individual adverts from the programs to frame accurate precision so that we can then pass them into access and other use cases. So just briefly, next steps, experiment with OCR, optical character recognition. I think I'm overkilling it massively by using a vision language model, because don't forget this. I think OCR can extract the text from every frame in a 7-minute video and pass the text into a really simple, I'm looking for Disney, show me the last frame where Disney appears, bingo. So I'm overkilling it, is my hypothesis. I think it will be 20 times faster or more using OCR than using Quen. So that's my next hypothesis to test. I may be wrong, but I'm hoping I'm right. Finalize the pipeline, grab all the 137,000 adverts. I'm co-supervising a PhD, computer vision PhD, with King's College London, Computational Humanities Department, to take the data once we've got it and use computer vision and other machine learning techniques to try to build understanding at scale that would be very hard to build manually. For example, have adverts changed through the last 10 years since Brexit? Have adverts changed through the COVID pandemic? How have adverts changed in terms of representation of gender and ethnicity and class, etc., etc.? I think adverts are a rich corpus because they accidentally tell us stories about changes in society. And that's really clear if you look at an advert about a British family now compared with an advert about a British family 20 years ago. It's radically different in its representation of ethnicity and class and all kinds of stuff. So that PhD should be immense fun, I reckon. So then we'll make the collection accessible in the BFI's MediaTek on Southbank, hopefully. And then more AI work, entity extraction, content summarization, expand the AI work to other collections and other areas of metadata fun. I've learned a lot through this project about how AI can be used with collections, video, and metadata. So If you go to here.now/@me, you'll find my links. That's where I've put them. And you'll see stuff like this, more reading, some videos, the advertising research, if that's interesting to you, and a description of the code and the actual GitHub repository if you want to take a look at the magical Python. And that's it. Thanks for listening. I don't know if we have time for questions, but maybe one.
It's more an observation. The 2 minutes, are you using an as-run log or a playlist?
Say that again, sorry.
Your 2 minutes discrepancy.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, you showed a list there of the ads and it played out, but if you had an as-run log from the transmission as-run logs, they should be more accurate than 2 minutes.
They may be. I don't have access to 10 years of those transmission logs, but if I could have a source for those transmission logs.
Well, the broadcasters would have.
Yeah, I mean, the getting metadata from the UK broadcasters is no laughing matter.
Right.
Put it this way, it may be faster for me to run AI across 137,000 videos than get metadata. I'd be totally open to any, come at me at lunchtime and give me advice.
And the other one, just the other observation, I don't know what the rule is in Britain, but you could have an 8 frame of black between each ad.
I tried audio. There was I tried a few hypotheses.
Yeah.
There's the silence. It's not consistent enough. You get false positives everywhere you look. There's black. It's not consistent enough. You get false positives everywhere you look. So we tried it, and you could get some success, but so many false positives that you end up having to build this pipeline to take your false positives out. So we tried all the silence, black, audio tricks, etc. It's very hard.
And the other one on the unique identifier, quite often as a broadcaster, people, when we were back in the tape world especially, people would deliver you a new tape and it's the same ID and there might be a slight variation.
Yes.
Just in the end frame usually, but there might be a slight variation. Just
of course.
To bear that in mind.
I'm sure you're right. At this point, I'll settle for 137,000 and sacrifice the 17,930,000. But we might come back to that if there's good time.
If you do get data, it could be something like a unique ID or a code, a kind of a contract code, and that would give you an idea whether it's a different ad, if it's a different variation. So just
what I'll probably do is run some. I'll probably run some manual checking to make sure that what we think is a repeat is genuinely a repeat, and use that to inform a decision about the 18 million.
Okay. Thank you.
I have one more comment that might be.
We might have to wait for lunch then.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Stephen.